Go ahead and get started. Hopefully y'all can hear me okay. Speaking loud enough. I see some nods and some thumbs up. Thank you. So thanks for coming to attending this, the first stakeholder meeting on the in-stream flow rules revisions. This is to implement the recent bill, which I will discuss, of course, in a few minutes. So just for this meeting itself, it's being recorded. It will become available on the CWCB website. So entering the meeting, everyone's microphone's muted. Please include any comments you have in the chat during the presentation, and we'll address those after the presentation. If you called into the meeting or if your listed name is inaccurate, we're going to ask you to unmute briefly to identify yourself for the record. I don't know if I see anyone. There was someone named, you've got Claude up there. Claude, what is your last name, if you don't mind, for the record?
Of course, it's Claude Straight.
Thank you. I think we've got everyone else. So I'm Kaylee White, introducing myself, of the CWCB staff in the in-stream flow group. With me to respond to questions and comments are Jen Mealy, the First Assistant Attorney General, and Rob Veal, who's the Chief of CWCB Stream and Lake Protection Section. And also from our staff are Lisa Bright-Unger and Kim Ricotta and Laura Corona are all joining us today from the in-stream flow staff. So quick roadmap for today's meeting. I'll review the background, the purpose of the legislation, and the rulemaking. Then I'll briefly go over the rulemaking process. Then we'll spend more time on the proposed revisions to in-stream flow Rule 6K. After that, we'll open up to questions, comments. I think the full presentation will happen during the first half hour, maybe less than a half an hour, and then the remaining time we'll have for questions and comments. So unless there's any procedural hiccups right now, I'll go ahead and dive in. All right, so background and purpose of this legislation and rulemaking. So CWCB was directed to promulgate applicable rules to implement Senate Bill 24-197, specifically Section 2, which allows for the loans of stored water to CWCB for use, for in-stream flow use, in-stream reaches where CWCB does not hold an existing decreed in-stream flow water right. So the full bill was to implement the proposals of the Colorado River Drought Task Force. And Section 2 is what we're talking about today, which is a paragraph and a half long. And that's codified at CRS 3783-105, which addresses the loans of water for CWCB in-stream flow use. So I'll pull up the bill and the statute here in a minute. But to give you a little background, the existing law already allows temporary loans, both expedited and renewable loans, two different types, of stored water or direct flow water to the CWCB for in-stream flow use, but those are restricted to reaches of stream in which CWCB already holds decreed in-stream flow water rights. The existing law has allows the water to be used to preserve the natural environment to a reasonable degree, which I might call the NERD, because that is my shorthand for those long words, statutory words, natural environment to a reasonable degree, up to the decreed rates. You can preserve up to the decreed rates. Or in the case of the renewable loans, you can improve the NERD, the natural environment to a reasonable degree, at rates in excess of those decreed rates by following the procedure in the regulations for those, to set those flow rates. So the existing rules direct CWCB's procedure for noticing, evaluating, requesting reapproval from the Division of Water Resources, making findings for accepting the loans of water. All of that's in the existing rules for for the, where we have an in-stream flow water rate. In the existing rules, preference was given to stored water over direct flow water when that was possible. So the new law adds just a little piece to the puzzle, which allows temporary loans, either expedited or renewable, just stored water, to the in-stream flow, to CWCB for in-stream flow use within the reaches where CWCB does not already hold an in-stream flow water rate. So that's where we're going. Now, the rulemaking process, what we're doing now, we start with the informal stakeholder meetings to have you all provide input on the proposed rules. We have this meeting, and scheduled is Water Congress meeting the Wednesday workshop day in January, and that'll be in person at Water Congress. So after the informal stakeholder meetings, then staff can take the proposed draft rules to the board and ask our board, CWCB board, to initiate the formal rulemaking process. And that's when they'll appoint a hearing officer and several other details. We can possibly do that in March of next year. And after the board allows us to initiate the formal rulemaking process, then we'll send notice to be published in the Colorado Register, and that will include the draft rules. They'll be included in the Colorado Register. Then we'll have, let's see, that's about in March, April through June. So we'll have like 3 months to flesh out pre-hearing statements, who's going to participate at the hearing. Then we can hold a public hearing. We're thinking maybe that will probably likely end up in July of next year. And then once the rules are accepted by the board, we can publish the proposed final rules. And then the rules go into effect 20 days after that publication. So possibly we'll be through with the process in September of next year. So now we'll dive into the actual rules. I am going to try to share my screen here. Oh, yes, I saw a quick note in there that about the Water Congress meeting on Wednesday, the workshop day. That is it. You don't have to pay for Water Congress to join that. You can just show up and be included in that meeting. Okay, so here's our landing page for the CWCB homepage on our website. You'll see under featured projects, the update, the in-stream flow rules update. If you click on read more, you will find this is the notice that you all received, which has links back to this page, and the rules revisions, the draft one. Now up here in the intro, we have a link to the in-stream flow program itself, the bill, and the statute. And we already have a copy from Lexis where the statute has incorporated the bill. So I'm going to click here. And this is the bill itself, Senate Bill 24-197, which I'm sure many of you have seen and were likely involved with. So in general, this is for implementing the proposals of the drought task force. Let me see if I can make this bigger. So it's 9 pages long, but what we're talking about today is, let's see, section 1, we're down in section 2, which I think starts on page 3. Here's section 2. This is adding a new, this is it right here. A new statute 3783-105 1C 1 and 2. And this is where and then 3 has, the board shall promulgate rules. So this is where what we're doing today. And this is the extent of the bill that's applicable for today. Then it goes into section 3 and several pages more, which we're not working with today. So to see it codified in statute, let me make this bigger. Okay. And you all might remember that 3783-105 was originally about ag to ag loans. And the ag to ag loans, which don't have to do with in-stream flows, is all right here in section 1A. Now this loans to CWCB for in-stream flow is the rest of the statute. So 1B, owner of any decreed water rate may loan water for CWCB for in-stream flow use. To preserve the environment, to improve the environment. Now, all of that was existing. The only thing that was added by this new bill is here, notwithstanding that where we, in this was specifically where you hold a decreed in-stream flow water rate. So here what the law added is I was, referring to before, but you can see it in writing, that the owner of the decreed storage right may loan water to CWCB to preserve or improve the natural environment to a reasonable degree, for stream reach where the board does not hold a decreed in-stream flow water rate. So this piece right here is what we are adding to the rules. So here we go, diving in to the rules. Well, let's go up to the top. Sorry. Okay. This is an excerpt out of our rules. We didn't list all of them in here. This would be a pretty long document. It's like 25 pages or something. That's a guess, I'm not sure. But our rule 6 involves acquisitions of water rights for in-stream flow use. So the acquisitions in general are covered in 3792-102. So, but the temporary loan statute is in 3783. So down in 6K, hope I'm not making you dizzy. I'll try not to scroll too fast. Down in 6K, this is where 3783 comes in. Temporary, expedited, and renewable loans of water to the board. Okay, so 6K is what we're working with. What we did was just add the ability that the bill and the statute now allows the storage water to be used where we don't have an existing in-stream flow, using mostly the procedures that we had in place, but we had to add that ability. So section 3783-105, this is what exists, authorizes the board to accept and exercise 2 types of temporary loans, the expedited and the renewable. And they're limited to let's see, renewable loans could be used to preserve or improve, but you had to have an in-stream flow reach already decreed. So we have to add, but in the case of loans made pursuant to this new statute, the owner of a decreed storage right may loan water to CWCB to preserve or improve the for a stream reach where the board does not hold a decreed in-stream flow water rate. So that's just in the intro. Now, how do we make that happen is in the rest of it. So we're going through expedited loans first. Actually, in both expedited and renewable loans, there was a request that when we send documentation to the state engineer, so the state engineer, Division of Water Resources, approves these loans, these do not go to water court. So it's an administrative process. But in addition, or specifically the necessary documentation that's required by statute. So the statute 3783-105 covers not just CWCB's responsibilities and obligations, but it also covers Division of Water Resources piece of this, like how do they approve these loans. So what's already required in those statutes is data regarding time, place, type of use, of the loaned water right, estimate of the historical consumptive use, but we're adding a detail in there which was requested that we shall include data regarding the historical storage releases. So CWCB's responsibility here is to help prepare and submit the necessary documentation to the state engineer. So we felt that was appropriate to have in our rules, that we will help the applicant make sure that they provide that extra data. So down, we're still in the expedited loan. Expedited loans were limited to, hold on, to preserve only. But this law allows preserve or improve, even for an expedited loan. So if a loan is being made pursuant to this new statute, stored water only, where we don't have an existing in-stream flow water right, we've got to get a biological analysis from CPW. We will request and review biological analysis from CPW concerning the extent to which the proposed loan will preserve or improve either the natural environment to a reasonable degree, and review any other biological or scientific evidence that's presented to the board about that reach. And then the board will make findings on the flow rates. So these will not be decreed flow rates, these will be board findings, and then Division of Water Resources makes the ultimate approval of the loan. So we've added those two requirements to both expedited and renewable. In the renewable, let's see. So now we're in section 2, renewable loans. A, B, and C didn't need anything added. Subsection D. So for renewable loans to improve the natural environment, we had an existing in-stream flow water rate. On the existing law, you had to have an existing in-stream flow water rate, and those rates are to preserve the natural environment. So to set flow rates to improve the natural environment, we already had that process in the regulations, which was the biological analysis from CPW, the same thing that we just kind of went over, to set those improved flow rates. And that was already in there. But if you're making a loan where we don't have an in-stream flow water rate at all, then we need to set rates for both preserve and improve the natural environment. And I say nerd because I have an affection for nerd and I have an affection for the natural environment. So it's not derogatory to me, it's an affectionate term. And I cleared it with my boss that I could actually use that acronym today. So, okay, so here we are preserving or improving the natural environment under the new statute with stored water where we don't have an existing in-stream flow reach. And we are requesting and reviewing biological analysis from CPW to set those into ultimately setting those flow rates. Okay, so that's all we had to add in there. And then in section F, this is also on the renewable loans. If the board directs staff to move forward, then when we submit documentation to the state engineer, we will include that specific data regarding historical storage releases. So the statute has some general terminology regarding historical consumptive use, time, place, and types of use, but we made it a little more, and also this specific requirement. I think the only other edits are, let's see, section H, which is again, in the case, let's see, it had that the loaned water shall not extend beyond CDBCB's in-stream flow reach. So if we had a reach from point A to point B, and we want to use it on down the river and go ahead and protect it a little bit longer past the in-stream flow reach, then if you use this statute with stored water, then the rate, the time period, and the reaches can be determined by the board to preserve or improve the natural environment. And that was our last edit. Now we're into 6L. So those are all our draft edits at this point. I think we went through that pretty quickly, which is great, but please let me know if I need to go over anything again, or if you have comments and questions. So I will open it up. I think we've got it pretty well covered, what we needed to cover, but please let me know if you see anything that's missing or if there's too much there. So do we have anything in the chat?
Pete, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yeah, hi. Haley, I was wondering, has there been thought about how the criteria would be set to determine what that reach would be? Kind of the extent of how, far downstream that water would be protected?
Oh, the length of the reach?
Mhm.
I think it depends on the intent of the project proponents. Like if it was on the Yampa below Stagecoach, maybe we would fill in the gaps where we don't have decreed in-stream flow. We've been trying to protect those releases all the way into town.
Mhm.
So maybe town would be the goal, or I think it would just depend on the particular situation. Wherever you want it to go, Pete, that's where we'll take it.
Sounds good to me.
I guess my reading of the statute, the regulation right in front of us right now is that the CWCB has to make that determination. Is that correct? It says they shall, in these cases, make sure the loan doesn't extend such amount or such reach as they determine. So it does seem like there's as part of the process, they have to determine a reach. And I guess I agree with you. They probably would listen to the intent of the proponent of this, but they still do set a definite reach. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. So yes, I flippantly says, okay, Pete, wherever you want it. But, Pete can propose it to the board or any, whoever the project proponent is proposes it to the board. But you're right, the board will make the ultimate decision as far as how long the reach is. And then, of course, there's another process with the state engineer for approving the actual loan itself.
And my understanding is you're not trying here to, your job here is to give the data to the SEO, and then the SEO is responsible for that process. Is that correct?
Right, with the SEO will be responsible for the loan itself and preventing, the state engineer needs to determine that no injury will result. So CDBCB's process and DWR's process is a little bit different, but our rules cover our process. Did I answer that question, or was there a subtlety I missed?
No, that's exactly, yeah, you answered it. Thank you.
Need to see who else is here. Anyone else have any comments, concerns? compliments? No. I'm assuming I'll see. Oh, go ahead.
Kaylee, it's Orla Bannon from WRA. I just want to jump in and say thank you for all your work on this. I appreciate all the effort that you've gone to, and you know, to keep it consistent with what's already existing. And like you said, it's a small change. It's a narrow change, and you know, it's important that we think about all the processes that are already in place, and leverage those. And appreciate all your work to do that. So thanks for this, and thanks for walking us through all the red lines and the information. Appreciate it.
Great, thanks, Orla.
Haley,
Uh,
there's a comment in the meeting chat from Kendall.
Okay, great. Kendall Bergmeister, thank you for your comment. We've got little I3 at the top of page 7. Let's go there. Oh, where it says give preference to loans of stored water when available over loans of direct flow water. He was saying perhaps that should be expressly limited to loans under 1B, since loans under 1C cannot be direct flow. Yeah, I think we stumbled on it and didn't quite address it, and I think that might be a good way to address it. We will take a look at including that for the next version. If I can copy, yeah. I think I can copy that comment. I'm gonna put it in my notes. Thanks, Kendall. Is there anything else that you all would like to see covered at the, the next meeting? I assume most of us are going to be at the Water Congress in-person meeting, but if you'll be there, or even if you won't be there, is there anything else you can think of that should be included?
I have a question. If we have any comments, like for example, Kendall's suggestion, which I think was a good one, where we want to make a little tweak to the language or something, how would be the best way for us to submit those to you? Because it might be helpful if we can, you've probably already covered this, but I'll ask anyway. It might be helpful for us to get those to you before our next meeting, and then you, whatever, it might help you go through them more easily or something along those lines. So to get back to the question, how's the best way to submit any comments to you on these draft rules?
Okay, thanks. Appreciate that. I think we've just put a link to my email, and if you want to write it up in an email or in a red line, we can take either. And then we'll just post those on, I think I'm still sharing, right? So when we go to our rules, and you'll see public comments, and then we'll just say who it's submitted by, and we'll go ahead and include the actual comment at this location.
That's pretty slick. That's nice.
Good. So this stakeholder meeting, so this is the public notice that you all received for the 2 stakeholder meetings. Then when we get the recording from this meeting, then you'll find it here. We'll put a link to the recording and the attendees and the comment.
Sorry, Kaylee.
Oh, Laura, I think we can download the chat too, right?
We can. It's true.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
I also, real
sorry,
quick.
Laura. And then Kaylee, under the rules revisions, that's where we'll be posting any revisions before the next meeting too.
Yes, yeah, we'll do that. We'll go ahead and label it draft 2, and then we'll put the date. Yeah, I think in this meeting notice, I think we just said any updates will be posted, so I don't anticipate that we'll be sending another notice out before the January. Let's
Also,
see, any
real quick,
updates to the, go ahead.
Real quick, we have a new attendee who just called in on the phone, and I would like to ask them to unmute and just tell us their name so that we can have it for the record.
Good morning. It's Stephen Smith in Glenwood Springs. Thanks for letting me just sit in and learn.
Thank you. Thank you for telling us who you are and joining our meeting.
Good.
Thanks, Kaylee.
So on this notice that I think you all should have received, for this meeting today, and then for the, here's the in-person meeting at Water Congress on January 29. And then it has links to our website, and that's where any comments will be posted, and any updates to the draft rules will be just posted on that website here. I'll click on that, see if it goes to the right place. Oh, look, it did. Good. We were tidying up the links this week. Jen, do you have any additional comments, thoughts?
I don't. I thought you did a nice job of running through the rules. Appreciate the comments. And I'll just reiterate that, you know, if anybody's reading through the revisions or even the next round of revisions, just email any thoughts or actual proposed red lines to Kaylee. Her name is, her email link is there on this website, and we can have, it'd be really helpful to have those prior to the next stakeholder meeting so we can be prepared to discuss. But thanks, Kaylee. Nice job.
All right, well, with that, I'll let y'all get back to your Tuesday morning activities with hopefully a little extra free time now.